state to regulate, legalize, and sanction all three. And Wyoming was the first state to do it, and now he's got Mississippi on board, and I think he's got like 6 or 8
Yeah, you
more
got
states.
Kansas, you got Wisconsin.
Yeah, he was really working on Kansas. Is Kansas in?
Kansas is
Okay.
in.
So
is Wisconsin.
but Wyoming was the first one. It took years. So
How's California looking?
I don't know, Benny. Do you know?
It's under work, but I think that here's to kind of capsulize everything was everybody was kind of thinking this was going to be a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, you really did not know what was going to happen, and this is the kind of sport that if you do some research on it, it goes back to the Brits have been doing this for a long time. They had a guy by the name of Lenny McLean, who was one of the greatest of all time, and I got into bare knuckle by just research. I saw that movie Bronson, and I did some research on the guy that's supposed to be the most notorious prisoner in the history of the penal system in England, and he's doing life, or what should have been just a theft charge. Now he's doing life because he beat up so many of the guards. But when he got out, he got into bare knuckle fighting and was going to fight Lenny McLean, but he ended up back in jail again. And it's that fight that we did in Cheyenne. That was the first time in 130 years that a fight was sanctioned in the United States. So it's been a long time coming. And what I was found fascinating is the fact that you have to be very precise, and Beck can elaborate on this, but basically, you have to punch through your index finger and middle finger and transfer that through the forearm where it's able to cushion the blow. If you get outside of that and you start flailing, then you're going to break your hand. And you're only going to go as far as that hand will take you. The rounds are 5 2-minute rounds. And Beck can tell you that is the fact that there's not a lot of feeling out period. She fought a very tough Mexican girl from Denver in the last fight, and you could tell this girl was very comfortable, with the brawling part of it. But then you can also see that feeling out period, and you can look in Beck's eyes. That I saw her eyes, and I said, "Okay, now here it comes." And sure enough, those eyes, it just came out, that steely look to it, and all of a sudden, a different spirit came out and took over that fight, and the other girl literally wilted. So I know, like for instance, Tony Lopez. This guy's a legend. If you ever want to do interview a real character in what a fighter is all about, Tony Lopez is the guy. I've seen him in fights where we contracted him on a Thursday and he lost 30 pounds and fought Saturday after losing 30 pounds. And this guy lives in Yucaipa. His wife is his manager, his trainer, his nutritionist. And in between, they've had 6 kids, so I guess she's not that tough, but whatever. So when I saw Joey Beltran and I saw that he was going to fight Tony Lopez, I told everybody, I said, this is the fight of the night. And sure enough, it was. But that was a lesson in managing the time. Because at the beginning, Tony was feeling him out. And then by the 3rd round is when he finally got in his rhythm. But by then, it's too late because he'd already lost the first 2 and went down and won them. So that was a 10-8 round. And then, so he changed the way he would approach in this next fight in as far as managing that 2-minute. The women in boxing have been 2-minute rounds. Men, it's always been 3 minutes. So they've had to go ahead and find a different way to manage that. And but what I thought was interesting was, when you talk about the rules, it's boxing rules. And a lot of the times, David's way of convincing, finally, Wyoming and stuff, that as far as the brutality of bare knuckle, if you think about it, and Beck can elaborate on this, in MMA, the knees can hit the face, right?
Yep, the knees, the shins, the elbows.
And those are extremely brutal shots.
Yeah.
But in boxing, and again, she can elaborate on that also, the movement is basically, pop, pop, surprise. And that's when you put something on. Because if you continue to do that, then you end up breaking your hand.
You can't have meat on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a very important thing. So in that 2-minute round, it requires tremendous precision and then that surprise punch. I thought Sam Shoemaker had the punch of the night. It was the most unbelievable shot I've ever seen. He fought a guy that if you saw him and you size him up, you get a guy like Sam Shoemaker, looked like a Amish guy that just came off the farm, with a long beard and all that stuff. I thought he had no shot at all. The guy had no definition in his body. He fights a special forces guy that was 305 pounds of a chiseled human being. I couldn't believe that he weighed 305 pounds. I mean, I come from a pro football background, and I'm used to guys that weigh 280 never look like that. So I thought this guy, and then you see him in a fight, and you see that overhand right come in and land, and you see that guy face down, look like Manny Pacquiao when he fought Juan Manuel Marquez, and it was over. And so those are the kind of things that we saw some really good things done. And I think what you're going to enjoy with bare knuckle fighting is, and I think what's wrong with boxing now is, you cannot get the best to fight the best. And I've always said that the combat sports, when it really reaches that level where you can please everybody, is when the world becomes the matchmaker. So that if you want to see Beck fight so-and-so, let it happen. You know what I mean? And right now, with the way the promotion is set up, it's wide open. So nobody's dodging anybody. We have a heavyweight tournament that started in the last one. That's going to continue. But otherwise, it's wide open for everybody. And on the television side, Brian Ricco, who from Multivision is doing the whole production, he spared nothing in doing this. He shot this on 4K. So you can literally see the eye, the finger go in the eye of a fighter with an extreme clarity, and it's just mind-boggling what you end up seeing. So it's shot on 4K, and definitely this is something that's got a timeline to it, because now HD is something, been there, done that. So it's shot on 4K, and the way the ring is set up, it's a little unusual. It's not quite a boxing ring, so it's kind of got like 5 corners around it, and it's not quite an octagon. And David wanted to make it something a little bit different and unique to bare knuckle fighting, and I think you can even find that, kind of an interest. I don't know, you maybe give your thoughts on what you thought.
The ropes are rigid, they're like actually steel, so there's no bounce in the ropes, so that was a different aspect. But yeah, it was definitely nothing like I've ever trained or fought in before, but it was cool. I think it suits the sport perfectly. Yeah, it was a nice built squared circle, I think. That's what they call it.
And it's not like, because with the octagon, a lot of times, even when you're calling a fight, you literally have to call it off the monitor, because you're not able to see all the areas of the, I even heard Dana White say, yeah, I was looking up at the monitor. I thought, really? Instead of looking down at the fight, because it does kind of get in the way. But if we can just touch a little bit on the rules, I think you'd find that interesting, and Beck can go ahead and touch on that. But basically, again, 5 2-minute rounds. The rest of it is exactly like boxing, with the exception, and if you can explain that, Beck, that you can grab the back of the head of your opponent.
Yeah.
Okay? So can you explain the advantage of that?
So you can clench the back of the head of your opponent. You can overhook their arm as long as you're still punching with your other hand. If you're just holding on, then you're going to get separated. If you're staying active in the clinch, you can punch, you can swap hands, grab, and punch with the other hand. It enables you to be able to control your opponent and punch them at the same time.
And that's a tremendous advantage. You've heard that time and time again in boxing. The referee warned the fighter not to grab the back of the head of his opponent. But other than that, everything else is boxing. And the command there is knuckle up. Once the referee says knuckle up, then it's on. And you're going to see them put their toes on a line. You're going to see the line right there in the middle of the ring. They place their toes on that. The referee says knuckle up, and it's time to get it on. And you're going to see a lot of the movements. Also, you've seen a lot of the old fight pictures of John Sullivan and Jeffries and all those guys with their arms up, this way. And basically, Beck, you can kind of explain that, the direction of the punch, the ways they go.
Yeah, you can punch linear as well. So instead of bowling your fist over, you can actually punch and extend that way. So you've got complete stability, and this is a different form of punching bare knuckle, so you won't injure your hands or your wrists. It's pretty cool, and you can just use your hands up. Like I don't know if you watched my fight, but I maneuvered her hands. I had open hands so I could pull her and then punch her. So that's another cool aspect that obviously crosses over from MMA with the open hand gloves. So it's not quite boxing, it's bare knuckle boxing. So I think definitely the way I approached the fight showed that I wasn't just out there boxing or trying to throw hands in an MMA fight. I definitely brought out the bare knuckle in the boxing while using my hands, using a cover guard and things like that to bang up her knuckles on my guard. So then I was able to open up on her. So I think when people stop looking at it like strictly boxing or strictly MMA with no kicks, and looking at it as the sport it is, I think that's what really excites people, that it's a new fascinating sport that you can bring different skill sets into.
And I think if you can use one word for bare knuckle fighting, it's precision.
Yes.
You have to be precise. And it requires tremendous discipline, down the pipe, managing the distance. Managing the distance, and I'm sure that Beck's coach, who coaches, the open hand and all that stuff, managing that distance is so important. Number one, from being effective in the way you strike. Number two, from preserving your hands. And number three, being able to go ahead and use up that 2 minute in a very effective way. And I think that's where these guys get pretty astute in the way they manage that stuff. And you're going to see some real skill set coming out of it. I know, I know there's another competing now, and I saw where, there's football players now signing up to go ahead and come in on this. And I think that's going to be interesting because, athletes are athletes, and the fact that the combat sport has always been something that's been enticing. And I know I come from South America where I grew up fighting on the street, and that was bare knuckle, and it was, neighborhood against neighborhood. And, you went out there and that's what you knew how to do. By the time they put the gloves on, that was kind of a luxury. But I think you're going to see precision. And again, when the hands go, fight's over.
Good. Any more questions?
Just want to kind of elaborate a little bit more when you were describing that you're holding the arm of your opponent and then you're blowing. Now, I assume that their side of their head is going to be exposed. How, or would it be illegal to hit this side of their head, or what part of their head is not allowed to?
It's the same with boxing. So
Okay.
the mohawk is off,
Yes.
off boundaries. So it's if it's the ear and obviously the front of the face is all.
And I believe in boxing, that's the term, a rabbit punch.
Okay.
Yeah.
A rabbit punch. Rabbit punch is still not allowed because that can be a very damaging punch. That could kill somebody.
If I'm going to punch while overlooking, I'm really going to go for the body.
Okay.
That's what they're going to be most open to the body because they're going to be guarded with their other hand. The only hand that they have is going to be here, which opens their body up. So.
And in regards of sparring and getting ready, testing yourself, obviously in boxing you can do that while you're sparring, but how do you test yourself with somebody?
We spar with gloves.
Okay.
We would never spar bare knuckle. The only thing we do bare is drilling. So we'll slow everything down and we'll work on catching, blocking, punching, getting a distance without a padded glove on. But all my sparring rounds are with gloves on, like you would with getting ready for a boxing fight. But I obviously clinch in the sparring. We dirty box in the sparring. So we can always work on that live, but anything bare knuckle is just slowed down drill, like 1-for-1 kind of thing, so you know what's coming at you.
And I think, just to elaborate on that point there, if you think of the human body, the softest part is the body. So that's what you want to hit the most, as opposed to the head. And I know we always, as an announcer, we make an analogy when an aging fighter is you say, the head is still hard, but the body's gotten softer. So you're more prone to go ahead and attack, those areas in the process. And, so that's something that works. And I think you're going to see people, really develop, an arsenal and that attacks that body, turning it.